הפודקאסט בחסות דאטה מדיה, המלווה ומייעצת לחברות בארץ ובחול בנושא אימייל מרקטינג, אווירות אימיילים ובחירה והטמעה של מערכות דיוור.
If you have an iPhone or iPad or plugged into your power overnight, it will load every email that comes to your mailbox and fetch the images, including the tracking image. And as a result, everyone who has an Apple device opens. That's currently, around 60% in Europe in our stats. It's 60% of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. So everybody seems to be active. I mean, they loved it for sure. It was a good day for a marketer who focuses on open rates. A bad day for those who measure the conversions and the conversion rates.
שלום לכם, אתם על crm.buzz, פרק מספר 285. והפעם ראיון מרתק בנושא אחת מהתופעות המעניינות שמשבשות את עולם האימייל מרקטינג. אני מדבר על תופעת האינטראקציות הלא אנושיות. מדובר בבוטים טובים שפותחים ומקליקים על אימיילים כדי להגן על פרטיות המשתמשים או על מנת לבצע סריקה של הכישורים שבתוך האימייל לצורכי אבטחה. חלק גדול מהפתיחות וגם חלק מסוים מההקלקות שאתם רואים במערכת הדיוור שלכם הם נתונים מנופחים של פתיחות והקלקות שווא, שנגרמות בדיוק בגלל התופעה הזאת של אינטראקציות לא אנושיות. ראיינתי לאחרונה את אחד מהמומחים המובילים לתחום הזה, ג'קוב אולקסה, מנכ"ל מערכת הדיוור מיילקיט ושירת הדיוור הטרנזקציוני אומניברי. פרק מרתק שמציג את התופעה ומסביר אותה, ובהמשך גם מציע פתרונות. אני מתכוון לערוך את הפרק ולתרגם אותו לעברית. אפרסם את הפרק בליווי תרגום סימולטני לעברית בהמשך, כאן ב-crm.buzz. בינתיים אני מפרסם כאן את הפרק באנגלית בשני חלקים. השבוע יובא החלק הראשון, ובשבוע הבא אביא את החלק השני. בשבוע הבא, כשהחלק השני יפורסם, אני אהיה ב-Deliverability Summit, ועידת אווירות באמסטרדם, ביומיים מרוכזים של מינגלינג ולמידה עם המומחים המובילים בעולם. גם את ג'קוב אולקסה אפגוש שם. הוועידה מתמקדת בניהול אווירות במערכות דיוור, ניהול שרתי דיוור ויחסי הגמלין בין מערכות הדיוור, הלקוחות של המערכות, ספקיות האימייל והגופים הנלחמים בספאם. אני מתכוון לערוך ראיונות בשטח ואשזור אותם בפרקים הבאים של הפודקאסט. אפשר לצפות בשידור סטרימינג מתוך הוועידה. אפילו קיבלתי ממארגני הוועידה קוד הנחה למי שמעוניין לרכוש כרטיסים. את הקוד ואת הקישור לרכישת הכרטיסים אשים בשואו נוטס. כעת לחלק הראשון של הראיון עם ג'קוב אולקסה. כאמור, החלק השני יובא בשבוע הבא.
crm.buzz.
Today we are diving into non-human interactions in email marketing, a phenomenon reshaping how marketeers understand opens and clicks. How are you today, Jacob?
Hi, Salah. I'm good. How are you?
Thank you for joining me for such an interesting topic.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite topics in the past couple of years.
Many email marketeers are unaware of the topic of non-human interactions, NHI. How would you explain non-human interactions in email marketing to email marketeers who haven't heard about it?
This term was coined when we started working on a white paper at MOG, which is a working group for messaging, where we deal with security and other aspects of email and abuse, etc. And, back then when we started, some of us started to notice something that you would call bot clicks or bot opens, but we didn't necessarily want to call it bots because these are not bots per se. These are not abusive interactions or something bad, and the term bot is usually associated with something negative. These are non-human interactions that are performed by automated systems for a good purpose, I would say, in most cases. Of course, there are non-human interactions that are bots, they're negative, but in most cases, these, what is often referred to as bot clicks and bot opens, are actually non-human interactions performed by security scans or privacy protection systems, etc. So to phrase it down into a simple sentence, those are interactions that appear to come from the recipient, from a human, but they are not. It wasn't that intended recipient who did that click or that open, but some sort of a system.
Mog was talking about non-human interactions way before Apple MPP was introduced.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and it took about a year, maybe even more, to get it published. We started way back because this is not a new phenomenon, right? The non-human interactions have been around for years. It's just that their impact was getting more noticeable over time. And I started looking into non-human interactions about 8 or 9 years ago when we noticed our customer, a tiny customer, a B2B customer, who sent like 400 emails. And all of them opened, and all of them were clicked, and multiple times, right? And that is something when you're looking at massive lists with hundreds of thousands of recipients, that is not something that you would notice if you have 400 out of those 100,000 opening and clicking.
Yeah,
you're not going to notice it. But if you have a list that has 100% open rate and 100% click rate, you start digging into that. Why is it? And then you notice, it's not just that there was a click for every recipient. There was a click on every link for every recipient. That doesn't look human to me, right?
Right.
And that's the thing about non-human interactions. They're fairly easy to spot in B2B environment, and especially if you're looking back at your data, you would be like, this is obviously not a human. It's kind of more tricky if you want to do it in real time and detect those non-human interactions and flag them. But we started this research and we found out, so these are not bad actors. These are security scans. These are corporate firewalls. These are antiviruses on end devices. These are anti-spam systems, corporations scanning every single email that passes through the system. So that was got my attention. And then later on, I worked on the white paper at Mog with my colleagues from a couple of other large ESPs to get this published, to bring some attention to this, because it's not just a technical problem, it's also a business problem.
I think that email marketeers became aware of non-human interactions when Apple MPP was introduced. Is MPP considered a non-human interaction?
It is.
It is.
MPP is definitely a non-human interaction. The thing is, as I said, if you're in B2B and you have a small list and everybody opens, everybody clicks, or you have a 90%, it's unusual. It's something that you notice. If you have a massive list and there's a 5% impact on opens and clicks, it's not something you would outright notice. It was when Apple rolled out their MPP when suddenly those non-human opens or bot opens made up 50 or 60% of all the opens. That's when people started noticing. And on top of that, I think there was a big impact of COVID, which started roughly 4 months later. And many marketeers were not aware of the impact of Apple MPP and attributed the massive increase in opens to COVID.
People being home.
To, people are sitting home. They're bored. They're reading my emails. They love my emails. Our email campaigns went through the roof. Thank you, COVID. But the fact was, it didn't go through the roof. And, many marketers started to notice later on during the COVID period that, yes, the open rates went up, but the conversions, the revenues did not copy that at all. Yes, there was increase in sales during COVID, but it wasn't 100% increase like it was with opens. So a lot of this was kind of hidden through other impacts on our lives.
Apple MPP was introduced in September 21. Can you explain what Apple basically doing with that mail privacy protection?
Yeah. So the idea of Apple MPP is that Apple will load the emails in the background when the device is not being used, preload everything, and by doing that, kind of hide the IP address of the recipient and protect the privacy better. I would argue it just doesn't work as intended, because it also gives a very strong signal that the address actually exists and that that the person behind that mailbox actually reads that mailbox and has an Apple device that loads those messages. So it's something that bad actors can really abuse by testing to see, is this person active or not? But that's beside the point. The point is, it loads the emails. It loads everything without the user actually doing anything. So if you have an iPhone or iPad or plugged into your power overnight, it will load every email that comes to your mailbox and fetch the images, including the tracking image. And as a result, everyone who has an Apple device opens, right? So that's currently, around 60% in Europe. In our stats, it's 60% of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. So everybody seems to be active, right? And it also meant that, those who were seeing 25% open rates, COVID started and Apple MPP kicked in, and suddenly it was 50% open rate.
Right.
Which, they loved it for sure. It was a good day for a marketer who focuses on open rates. A bad day for those who measured the conversions, the conversion rates.
Roughly, can you give us a sense of the impact? And I know it varies based on country, and in my country or in the States, it will be different.
Yeah. Well, on average in Europe, it's 50%. Half of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. In US, that number will be higher because Apple devices are just more popular there, but could be 75%. So it's a lot.
Amazing. That brings me to the next question. Many ESPs have not updated their platform statistics or informed their clients about this change. Everything on their platform dashboard remains essentially the same.
Well, everything is the same, but also everybody is very happy about high open rates, right? So for many ESPs, it became kind of a internal fight between the technical teams and the business teams, because it is kind of hard to make the business case for why should we suppress the non-human interactions, right? Because it may scare off the customers when they see a sudden drop. At MailKit, we've been doing detection of non-human interactions before Apple MPP kicked in. So when it kicked in, it had no impact, right? The customers didn't see that spike in open rates. So we didn't have to worry about them being unhappy about the drop. Now, other ESPs who haven't done that, are in a tough position. And I mean, it's not that tough because there are ways how to present this to the customer. And we are also showing these are the interactions that are human. And this would be the total number if non-human interactions would be included. So you kind of see, okay, my open rate is 25%, but including non-human interactions, it would be 40%, right? So there are ways, but it's really about the business case for many ESPs. And when it comes to opens and when it comes to Apple MPP, it's well documented by Apple how to identify Apple MPP opens. So it's not that difficult to implement. When it comes to clicks, that becomes really hard because you don't have Apple MPP behind those. And it's not easy to identify.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe it's a question of a lack of standards. Let's take two different ESPs. One is placing the tracking image pixel above the fold, and the other at the bottom of the email. Does it also impact the open rates statistics?
Okay, so this is tricky. The tracking pixel was never accurate. The open rate measurement was never accurate, and it was always a rough number. Right. It's indicative. Second, if you have the tracking pixel at the top of your HTML of your mail, if images are loaded on Gmail, that tracking pixel will load, right? On the other hand, if your email is too long, so Gmail decides to crop it, you won't know about it because the tracking pixel loaded. If you have the tracking pixel at the bottom, you have the same likelihood of getting the information about the email being opened. But in addition, you will also get the indication if that email was cropped by Gmail, because suddenly your open rates at Gmail will be super, super low, right? So I don't see an advantage in putting the pixel up top. I see the advantage of putting it at the bottom. Not to mention the reduced risks of, altering the HTML and having something screw up the content.
I wonder why there is no industry standard for placing the tracking pixel in an ESP.
Because this is not something that can be easily standardized, right?
Okay.
What would be the general benefit of standardizing this? Like, you don't have a standard that would generally cover how web remarketing ads work, right?
Okay.
You can tie them, every campaign can be tied to different attributes, different behavior, etc. So what would be the benefit of having this standard? even within Mog, when we already know that it will be inaccurate anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's like standardizing something that is broken. And it is broken. It has always been broken. It was not intended this way, right? If the creators of email wanted to have a technology-based information relayed about the status of the message being opened, they would incorporate that into the email standard itself. But because of how email was built and what was the purpose, originally nobody expected this to be used for marketing, right? So there was no need for tracking the opens. And even today, when the industry is discussing having a standardized engagement reporting from the ISPs to ESPs, that would allow us to see the engagement, because right now there are very few ISPs providing this information. You have Mail.ru, which has certain dashboards that allow you to see how the message was placed and what were the opens and skim opens and deletes, etc. You have Seznam CZ, which has similar data available over API, but is it comparable? We don't know. You have Yahoo, who has commercial product, and then you have Google Postmaster tools, which are presenting certain information, right? Completely different information. It's not necessarily, oh, this many people have opened, this many people have clicked, etc. And even if there is a standard like that, which is currently being worked on, a standardized engagement feedback loop, it's going to be an aggregate. It's going to be a total number. So if you send out 100,000 emails and you see, well, 20,000 people opened it, how does that help you? Right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be helpful for your automations, because you cannot just, randomly guess 20% of your list, right?
Right.
These were the ones who clicked, or these were the ones who opened. You will get, and that's the intent of the new standard, to give you more reliable engagement metrics, so you know if your recipients are really engaged, or you're just believing a random number from one square pixel at the bottom of an email.
And this standard will rely on the mailbox providers.
Yes, that is something that the mailbox providers are working on, to provide unified data. So what you get from Google, what you get from Yahoo, or what you get from 1&1 or Apple iCloud, that it's comparable. So you can tell, okay, I had an engagement of X here, and X here. It's comparable numbers. But
interesting.
We are far from having that. The tracking image, whether it's top, bottom, multiple, is the best we can do to make sure that it has as wide compatibility as possible. Yes, with AMP, you could do other things, but again, the support for AMP is fairly limited. You could incorporate schemas or many other technologies that would give you some sort of information, but would it be accurate enough? Would it work for 90% of your recipients? Like 20 years ago, when we started, we were talking about, hey, by the way, the accuracy of the open rates is low because people have to click to load images, right? Remember that 20 years ago, it was people had to click to load images, and 20% of people were using email clients that didn't support HTML at all. So it was a completely different world. And open rates were extremely inaccurate back then, right? Marketers got used to the fact that it became more accurate thanks to Google image caching, right? So that made it more accurate because images were loaded by default for everyone. They didn't have to confirm, yes, I want to load images, right?
Like
and
Outlook
pretty much
desktop.
everybody adopted that. So it got more accurate, way more than it used to be. It doesn't mean it became accurate enough.
Right. I think that you mentioned Gmail. Gmail is also doing some kind of a prefetching of images, proxying it.
Yeah. So that's another thing. Google, Yahoo, Yandex, you name it. Pretty much everyone these days does image caching, right? So instead of downloading the image every single time, they will just cache the images and store it in their system. So when you open an email that I opened an hour ago, they don't have to go and download that image again and again and again for every single person, because that's a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Now, that caching is very efficient, but at the same time, if they cache an image that is unique to a single recipient, it does not affect the open rates really. It would affect the metrics of how many times that single email was opened, but because the tracking image has a unique URL for every recipient, it's not affected by the caching in terms of measuring open rates, or in 99% of cases or 95% of cases, because there are cases when this loading is not done when the user opens an email, but when Google wants to see that email and do some security scans.
עד כאן החלק הראשון של הפודקאסט עם ג'קוב אולקסה. את החלק השני אפרסם ביום רביעי הבא. אני מזכיר לכם ש-crm.buzz הוא לא רק פודקאסט, אלא גם בלוג שכולל מאות מאמרים נרחבים בנושא אימייל מרקטינג ואווירות. אפשר, ואני ממליץ, גם להירשם לניוזלטר של הבלוג. באמצעות הכפתור האדום בבלוג תוכלו לתאם איתי שיחת ייעוץ ראשונית בנושא אווירות אימיילים ללא עלות. תודה לכם על ההקשבה, ועד לפעם הבאה, שמרו על עצמכם, חג שמח ולהתראות.
אתם מוזמנים להירשם לבלוג שלנו, הקישור crm.buzz בדפדפן שלכם.
הפודקאסט בחסות דאטה מדיה, המלווה ומייעצת לחברות בארץ ובחול בפעילות אימייל מרקטינג אפקטיבית ואווירות אימיילים. אימייל Deliverability.